alaikum. Hello everyone. I hope you're feeling fresh and fit today. Welcome to a new episode of Paymob Talks. I will be your host for today. I'm Sadia Khurram, heading the e-commerce and SME sales and account management for Paymob Pakistan. A quick recap. What is Paymob? Paymob is one of the leading fintech in the MENAP region with 6 different countries across the globe. We're serving 150,000 plus merchants. We bring state-of-the-art and international service standards to Pakistan to digitalize their enterprise, SME, and e-commerce markets for acceptance and payouts. In addition to this, we arrange Paymob Talks where we invite the senior personnels and experienced people from the industry for a chit-chat to gain insights and get to know what's happening around. Today with me, I have a very intelligent and experienced personnel who not only have the experience of working for the private sector, but has worked for the government too. So without wasting any more time, let me introduce my guest to you. Today we have with us a very intellect personality, Omer bin Ahsan, the CEO of Hubble. Assalamu alaikum, Omer. Kaise hain aap? Thank you for taking our time and joining us. Can you tell us more about yourself, about your background? Where did you grow up? What were your career ambitions when you were younger?
So I grew up here most of my life in Karachi. I was born here. My father was in the army, but he retired when I was 6 years old. So since then, lived here in Karachi, studied here, grew up here, and like any other military kid, there was always an aspiration to be part of the government. Not in the army, but probably in the government service or foreign service, and that's what I aspired. And again, college was here. Graduated from fast and then did my master's at CBM. And growing up, I did not imagine that I would be part of the tech space, let alone the financial tech space. So yeah, this is a complete deviation from the childhood aspirations or fantasies.
Great. I see that you've done some teaching. So do you feel that what inspired you, and you think how essential it is that professionals need to go back to the school to inspire and educate the young youth?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's probably our responsibility that we should go back into academics. If there is a subject that we feel that we have a good understanding, we should not just to give back to the student body, but also to make sure that the real life lessons that we've learned are given back to them, so that there is no disconnect between the academic life and the real practical work experience. So I've been teaching for a very different reason. That wasn't my purpose. I grew up reading a lot of history and philosophy, and and the teachers that I had made me promise that I would continue teaching philosophy in order to sharpen my own skills and develop the body of knowledge that I had acquired. So, which is why I kept teaching on the side. And what I teach has got nothing to do with technology or finance. So again, this is a departure from my work experience. It's more to do with perhaps the aspirations that I talked about before, that I wanted to be in the government service. So philosophy, political philosophy, or even the philosophy of technology are spaces that I understand well, and I thought I should continue teaching them in order to develop my own skill, as well as to make sure that newer generations understand the critical aspects of life and of society.
Very interesting. Leading from this, I believe you've spent about 9 years in the aviation industry and the government sector. So what led to the change of moving to the technology, the fintech industry, and how do you find this change?
So I started off back in 2009 working for an organization within the Federal Board of Revenue to automate their customs clearance process. And then since then, there was a lot of government reform, tech-based reform project that I was involved in. And that sort of stayed with me, kept being called back to the government organizations for other reforms, whether it was with Sindh government or the local government or with the Federal Board of Revenue or the Punjab IT Board. And that part of my life stayed alive, even while I was working in the aviation sector. But 2016, I was asked by FBR to build the online tax collection system, which is where I acquired the skills to understand how payments move from person to government or business to government. And that was really where this awakening came, that this is a space that requires a closer examination, especially in the area that we are in at Hubble, the B2B payment space. And so it was providential, I guess. I didn't really plan this, but it's you sit on an opportunity or you sit on a project, and other things appear fall in front of you, and you think that you can probably make something out of it, and that's how Hubble came into being.
Great. So building on this, can you tell us more about the origin of Hubble? By the way, I find the name very, very different and unique. So I would like to know that what was the thought processing behind Hubble, and what exactly do you want to represent through it, and what's the origin?
So the two popular occasions where the word comes in the Quran, and is where it says that don't be divided amongst yourself and hold fast the rope of Allah.
Yeah.
So the rope of Allah is Hablullah.
Oh.
That's where Hubble came in. And then another occasion on the Quran, it says that God says that I'm closer to you than your own jugular vein.
Yes.
So that's Hablil Warid. And that's where the word Hubble came in. And the idea was, a rope is something that connects, something that binds things together, or the rope of Allah is something that is a large tent where everything comes together. And the idea was that as a B2B platform, the large corporate supply chain and the financial industry was not seamlessly integrated. It was a broken offline manual process. And that's the area where Hubble came in, where it aggregated all of the payment services behind it, and then aggregated the corporate supply chain.
Yeah.
And sitting as the jugular in the middle was the sort of thematic approach that I took when we adopted this name.
So very well thought, I must say. And what do you think was the key factor, or what do you think was the builder for your success in the past 6 years?
So I think a lot of help from God and a lot of perseverance. We just stayed at it. We did not change gears. We didn't pivot into other areas when we felt that it was not gaining traction. Right up till COVID-19, we had only had a few successes.
Yeah.
And as it has changed across the globe, that post-COVID-19, suddenly there was a greater adoption of payment services, of digital services. We benefited from that. I think the regulatory environment also dramatically improved post-COVID-19, that the State Bank was actively looking at pushing these things. So we benefited from those tailwinds. But one thing that we have stayed true to is that we've remained steadfast on our mission, which is the corporate supply chain, the B2B space. We didn't deviate into other opportunities, as appealing as they may seem. And honestly, sometimes we have customers walking into us, whether it is for consumer payments or consumer to business or government payments, and we've just said no to those opportunities because I felt that this space requires a lot of focus, and it requires a lot of patience, and we don't want to be sidetracked by anything else that goes around in the market.
Yeah, so hearing what your ambitions are and how you've paved your path, what do you think are the essential keys or the utilities that a founder should have?
In Pakistan?
In Pakistan, yes, definitely.
Yeah. So in Pakistan, I think it's really important to have local grit. You need to understand the local landscape to be able to operate in the asymmetric sort of complex socio-economic web that our country is. That's true for any other country, that you have to have local gravitas. And then I think it's also really important to be persistent in your ambitions. You have to have very good counsel of very smart people around you, whether it's your board members or your shareholders or friends who are there to guide you. I was new to this industry, and I've relied heavily on some very good friends who were already here, who were in the payment space, who were in the banking space, and they've coached me through navigating these waters. So in the Pakistani sense, of course, understanding the local nuances, a lot of patience, being thick-skinned, and then knowing some really smart people who can coach you, help you avoid some mistakes because they've already walked through those paths. And I've been fortunate to have some of these friends around me who've guided me. you have to assume that you don't know anything, and if you understand something to be true, then you have to get it validated multiple times through multiple sources before you take some concrete action on that. And that's generally the process of how I've operated, where I have counsel from my board members, from friends who are in the industry, and that's really helped us.
So very well said. Like you said, the people, your teams, and you have to validate your thoughts. So what factors do you consider before evaluating or, going for your executive team?
So the executive team, fortunately, they've been with us right from the beginning, and these are very responsible senior people who are wholly committed to the idea of what Hubble is trying to deliver, independent of what I'm talking about. They hold their own ground. They will say no when they have to say no. They will criticize my approach if they feel that it's wrong, and they bring me back to our priorities. That our own stated mission has to be sometimes you have to refresh it over and over again so that you don't go out into different directions. So every time there's a new opportunity or a new partnership that's coming our way, it's really important to have the executive team bringing you back to your core mission. And with these guys, I think they have this metaphysical sort of certitude about what we're trying to do. And I can see it from their language, the way they behave and the way they passionately pursue their area of operation, that there is this certitude about what we're trying to accomplish. And I think that is very important for me, particularly because it means that this is not just a paycheck or a job. It is not just a job description. It is about accomplishing something so big and so vast, which is the corporate supply chain and its digitization, which is a massive undertaking. Yeah. We're just at the beginning.
So you spoke about the challenges and the ambitions that you've set for your organization. What do you think, or how would you put down the challenges of the fintech industry of Pakistan? And specifically, if you talk about the business payment sector, so how would you foresee that evolving in the time?
So there's a lot already been said about this. There are enough reports to sort of enlist some of these challenges, but I think the biggest challenge for the fintech industry at this point in time is persistence. I think we're trying to do too many things at the same time, which diverts our attention, dilutes our capital and resources. I think if everyone sticks to their wicket and stays at it, the market is so big. Pakistan is a very big population. The scope for digital adoption is massive. There are so many things that still haven't been even tried in Pakistan. And any fintech that enters a space needs to focus on solving one problem. If they can commercialize it, then just double down on that particular problem and try to make the best of it, as opposed to trying to do too many things and mimicking what other people are doing. I think that's one thing that a lot of fintechs have experienced challenges in. The other space is, of course, the cultural adoption of digitization, that we are still a very opaque society. We don't want to be transparent in terms of digitization. So that's a problem on merchant acceptance, or even on SME and MSME digitization. And I think that is, there is no quick fix to that. There are multiple ways you solve that. Regulator has to play a role, and there has to be enough of an incentive structure within the value chain to make sure that digitization makes sense for them. And also, there is a new generation that will come into leadership positions, whether it's at large corporations or MSMEs or down at the retail level, where this shift will automatically happen because the newer generation has been raised with phones and they
more tech savvy.
They're tech savvy. Yeah. They will naturally be inclined towards adopting these means.
And we just have to
wait for that curve. It is already happening. Yeah. Just have to wait for that curve and be ready to capture that traffic when the volumes start coming towards them.
So in your conversation, a lot of times you refer to a term, contextual payments. What exactly do you mean by that, and why is it important for the industry?
So a big problem within business payments is the reconciliation of their transactions. And that's largely because incoming payments are blind, that you're receiving money, you don't know where you're receiving it from.
Absolutely.
You don't know why you're receiving it. So there's no referenceability of that transaction because the existing rails, the way they were written, are not capable of moving or transporting the context of the payment, of why the payment was made, the purpose of the payment. And we've been championing this for about 6 years. We've written papers on this, and State Bank has been a very good sponsor of this concept, especially in the design of RAST, that they made sure that it was contextualized, that the context could move with the transfers. And it opens the door to a lot of things, that not just reconciliation, better KYC, AML controls, and more importantly, most payments company eventually aspire to become lending companies or financing companies. And then again, this contextual data adds value to scoring those obligors or those customers. And that's why the transportation of context with the payment is very important. And we've been talking about it more because for large corporation, where they have very strict rules on compliance and audit and controls and taxation, it's very important that they understand why they're receiving these funds or why they're sending out those funds. So the context has to travel. Now, we had to do some sort of technology acrobats to make sure that the context moves. But it would have been a lot easy for Hubble if 6 years ago, this was already there in terms of the rails, which is why we were very excited about the promise of RAS, that it will allow the context to move with the payment information.
So as you spoke about the context and the KYC and to know where the payments are coming from, what are your thoughts on artificial intelligence and machine learning in this sector?
So I'm not an expert on this, but I'll make an uneducated remark on the subject, which is that I think artificial intelligence or machine learning has a role to play when the data is already being harvested.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you asked. That context sort of segues into how the data feeds into that data farm, where AI or machine learning could play a role.
Yeah.
But there is a fundamental problem in Pakistan that the data is
not accumulating the way
not accumulating, not transporting. Even if it's accumulating in silos, it's not being transported
compiling it with the central
interoperable channels. Which is why the problem of harvesting still remains.
True.
And once you are able to harvest, only then you can, I assume that you can then have a stronger role for AI and machine. I can give you a standard answer on AI that, of course, there'll be conversational AI and,
I
facilitate search
absolutely,
and call centers and all of that. I'm not an expert on that.
Right.
But in the long run, if we have a contextualized rail in Pakistan, I feel that there is a very strong AI play that will then sit on top of that kind of mobility of contextual data.
And certainly it will add a lot of value to not just only one entity, but across the industry, to the players all that are operating. So talking about the other players in the industry, what do you think is the future for Pakistan fintech industry, and some good startups that you would like to just mention and talk about?
Okay, so Pakistan, I think, is going to face a digital financial services explosion. I'm not saying this because we're in the industry. If you just look at the macroeconomics or the demographics, or generally the population, the GDP, the potential, the opacity, how much of an informal economy we have. If you look at all of those ingredients, this is ripe for this. I think fintech is going to be one of the leading sectors in Pakistan. It's also potentially a very good export opportunity for Pakistani fintech firms or tech firms. So if you look at other countries who have similar sort of dynamics, they're also doing the same things. They're probably 4 or 5 or 10 years ahead of us.
Yeah.
So we're on the right path, and I feel that fintech is going to have a very strong voice in the industry and will eventually turn into an export opportunity, given that we have a very large population.
Any tips for the new startups that you would like to give? That they
stay at it. Just stay at it. Play straight. Have very strong governance.
Yeah.
Be very conscious about governance from day one.
That's very important.
You cannot cheat the system. These things will catch up to you.
Yeah.
So make sure that you're compliant, that you pay your taxes, that you are judicious in terms of your team members, your market participants. You're an honest merchant.
Yes.
You should be an honest merchant in any business, but in fintech, it's a lot more important because you're responsible for moving money.
Yeah.
I give this sort of.
It's a bigger responsibility.
I give a vulgar example for this, that a fintech in the wrong hands is like Pablo Escobar with a port and a submarine. So it cannot be in the wrong hands. It has to be in the right hands with the responsibility that you are going to move people's money. So you have to be extra cautious about who you are, about how you run your team, the governance and compliance culture that you've created, and then let the volumes come to you. You don't have to do any quick tricks to get the volumes. You just have to stay at it. So yeah, going forward, given that this is a massive opportunity space for Pakistani fintechs, you just have to stay at it, but play straight, play with a straight bat. And even when the economy goes back, continue batting straight. When you're not able to play a strong bowler, what does a good batsman do? He plays moderately. He plays with a straight bat. He doesn't try to fancy any lofty shots. So that's all that you have to do, and stay at the wicket. So that's what I feel is something Pakistani fintech should. You said, who are my top picks? I will probably, there's so many good friends and companies that we work with very closely. But I think I don't want to mention any traditional fintechs, because let's say, you're doing e-commerce acquiring or POS acquiring, or you're doing B2B payments, or you're doing aggregation. There are enough of those. There's no novelty in that anymore. Or you're a lending fintech that you're doing invoice financing or early wage access, or all of that. I would say that that probably Udaan is solving a very good problem, because they're creating a culture of saving, which is way more important than a culture of consumption and lending, borrowing. So I like that, because I like the thesis behind the concept of saving. I think it's culturally better for Pakistan to have a concept of savings. I also like what Postex is doing, given that they're trying to solve the problem for e-commerce collections on the logistics side, and they're doing some exciting work over there. So these are two companies that I've seen recently are not doing the traditional fintech
in doing
work.
Something. Very rightly said. These I believe are the essentials for building up a strong ecosystem for any organization. So now we'll move to the last round of our segment. This is a fun round. It's the first off. It's called the first off. I'll ask you questions and you just have to give me the answers top of your head. Right? Let's begin.
Yeah.
Great. The first country you ever visited?
I think that was Dubai, UAE.
UAE. Okay. Yeah. The first paycheck you received?
18,000 rupees.
Right.
Yeah.
Great. The first car you purchased?
Honda City 2006.
2006. The
Manual.
Manual.
Yes. Couldn't afford an automatic.
So yeah, cars are usually very close to everyone's.
Yeah.
The first time you saw a failure?
A failure. This was maybe 4 years ago. It was not related to Hubble. There was this government reform project that I was pursuing, and I put a lot of heart and soul into it. And we had constructed this massive government bid, and we feel that we won it fair and square, but then it went into court multiple times, and then I feel that justice was not given. And yeah, that was probably something that we spent like 1 or 2 years pursuing, and on the technical scorecard we felt we were number one, which we were graded as that. But then even then the decision because of whatever political or favoritism was not taken in our favor, and that I took it inside. I took it that wasn't able to convince that organization on the strength of our honesty and on the strength of the quality of the service that we were promising to deliver. So yeah, honesty didn't get paid at that time, which I felt, I got it. It was a failure because we weren't able to convince them. But yeah, I mean, it was also a lesson learned that, don't put your heart into these things. These successes and failures will come.
Will come and go. The first time you ever took a risk.
The first time that I ever took a risk, like a business risk or like a scary ride.
It can be both. We'd love to hear both.
I was visiting a friend at the Gadani port because I used to work for Pakistan Customs for making that system for them. So there's this friend who was a collector there, and I just wanted to say hello to him. And then he said that, you want to visit the shipyard where they break the ship? I said, yeah, that sounds interesting. So I went to the shore, and there was this crane that would lift you up 8 stories high. It was just like a basket where you had to stand, and it placed you on the ship so that you can examine the ship. And someone said that, you want to try that? And there were too many men surrounding
You didn't
me,
get a chance to.
And I just had to say yes. And so I did say yes, and I got on that crane, and then it lifted me, and that was like a very scary situation because like gusty Arabian Sea winds with this one wire holding you, lifting you 4 stories up, and then putting you on a ship that's about to die. So that was a very scary incident, and I had a son I had my first son. So I was doubting my intelligence and how stupid could I be to say yes to this because, I'm risking my family and all of that if I fall off. So that was a stupid and risky thing that I did.
But I'm sure such sort of risks make you more stronger. They prepare you.
I think it was a absolutely.
Would you dare to take
thing.
It again?
No, it was really stupid of me to do it. I had no job being there.
So
there was no good reason for me to stand on that crane.
Great. So it was really lovely having you on the show. Thank you so much for taking out time, and I hope you had a nice chit-chat conversation with us. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for watching us. Please like, share, and subscribe. And in the comments below, let us know who you want us to call next. Thank you. Have a good day.